from the cannons. When the smoke clears, we're still standing. Yes, we stand our ground.
You're listening to Everlasting Veteran.
When the smoke clears, we're still standing.
Welcome, everybody, to Everlasting Veteran. I am your host, Ryan Landry. I am joined here with the CEO, founder, and president of the Veteran Connection, and the CEO of 22 Salute Spirits and Coffee with a Purpose, and helping you find your why through the struggles, Eric Ranks. Sir, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
So I did a little research and stuff, and I definitely have to say that my eyes have opened to boundless success is one thing that I saw with you. Could you just go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So I have a book right here, Boundless Success with Eric Ranks. That book specifically was written about my life and the health challenges I've had in my life, and that have led me to giving back to veterans and first responders. And so, I'll take a real short moment and explain my story. So I grew up as an Air Force brat. I'm a dependent in the Air Force. My dad served in the Army during Vietnam and then transferred to the Air Force. Well, at a young age, around 5 years old, I was diagnosed with leukemia. And was there back to the Bethel Naval Hospital through the military, got treatments there. It's called Walter Reed Brown Flame Hospital. Depending who's listening to this, the generational dependent what they know it by. But on top of that, I had internal bleeding that took hospitals over 3 weeks to stop, ruptured esophagus as a less than 50% survival rate, just one massive health problem after another. And through that, I would never claim to understand what a veteran or first responder is dealing with personally with PTSD with the things they've experienced. But I understand what physical and mental pain is, up to the point where I've been suicidal in my life for some of the things I've been dealing with. And so I understand that. And that's kind of what led me, one, to write the book and explain my story, but also to start the Veterans Connection. In 2012, 2012, that's right. In 2012, I had some friends that came back from Iraq and Afghanistan with super bad PTSD issues. And when I saw them not getting the help they needed, and me understanding that pain, both physically and mentally, drove me to leave corporate America and start a nonprofit. And so Boundless Success is kind of like a book that talks about my story, about how I found my why, my passion in giving back. And it also has some 7 business principles that I found that if people apply, help them to be successful in business. And then it's co-written with some other authors as well that share some of their stories as well.
Yeah, it's truly an inspiring story, and I was reading up on some of it as well, and I think it, like you said, it pushed you and drove you to, start with the Veterans Connection, and now, 22 Salute Spirits and Coffee with a Purpose, which is an amazing journey that you're going on right now. And I do have to say, fortunately, I can't try it right now because the bottle is empty. All right, because it was that good. It is definitely the smoothest vodka that I have had, and I don't just say it because you're on, because I tell you, there's many different vodkas out there, and it just you get that little robust to it as well, but at the same time, when you have it with I prefer ginger ale with a lot of stuff, just that ginger taste with the vodka gives that little spike to it. It's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And on top of it, you your mission with 22 Salute, with the service dogs, kind of dive into that a little bit, because that's an important piece of helping veterans and first responders as well.
Yeah, so the Veterans Connection, I'll talk about that first. So the Veterans Connection, as I mentioned, was founded in 2012. And we have like a 4-pillar system. And it's a whole holistic approach to veteran mental health. So where some nonprofits cover different areas of mental health or different areas for veterans, we try to look at a whole holistic approach because we find like people don't truly heal unless you can help in each of the areas of their life. And so the first one is connection. And so how do we rebuild the brotherhood, sisterhood bond? How do we help people not self-isolate because they feel like people don't understand what they're going through? In that pillar, we have multiple assets that we work on at the pillar, but one of them service dogs falls under, but service dogs actually fall under more than one pillar. How they fall under that one is it gives the veteran or first responder a purpose. Like they have to take care of this dog. Like they're not feeling alone. They're not by themselves. They have this companionship. They have a responsibility. So that's partly where service dogs fall over to that pillar. But we also have things like an app that veterans can connect with other veterans. We also use that for employment. Like you can connect with different employers and stuff through the app and things like that. So that's connection is our first pillar. The second one is empower. And I apologize if I stop for a second. It's because there's a feedback. So just so everybody understands why I pause every once in a while. But empower. So that's your basic human needs: housing, food, shelter, veteran benefits, childcare. Like people don't realize, like there's a lot of vets and first responders who can't go get help for things because they have to take care of their kids, so they can't leave to get that help. So childcare falls under that. If you solve those two, then you can get people out of fight or flight mode. You can't start a healing journey if they're in a fight or flight mode. You know, hey, I don't know how I'm going to eat tomorrow or where I'm going to live, or I'm isolating, so I'm not seeking help. So we've got to solve those two first, and then we go into Align, and that's your alternative natural therapies. And PTSD Service Dog is a huge piece of that. It's actually one of the most proven therapies when it comes to helping people heal. Not only like giving them the healing, but it also there's like an 87% success rate of getting people off pharmaceutical drugs, having PTSD service dogs as well. So it's not only just the healing, but it's also getting them off the drugs that the average veteran's on 10 plus drugs by the VA. And so we definitely want to reduce that. But we also do things like equine therapy, we do EMDR, yoga, tapping, like all kinds of natural things outside of the traditional counseling and pharmaceutical drugs. And then our last pillar is Thrive. And that's like veterans giving back to other veterans. That's helping them pay off their mortgage faster, credit repair, like different things like that all fall under that. So we partner with both for-profit and nonprofit agencies to make this happen. Like that's a huge undertaking to take on all 4 initiatives. And we know that, but we also know that it's crucial for someone to really get the healing is to make sure that all 4 areas are covered in their life. And so we've gone out of our way, instead of other nonprofits who say we all compete for the same donation dollars, we go out of our way to partner with other nonprofits, and we even will help fund other nonprofits. Like Service Dogs, which you brought up, we partner with 2 different groups. We have the Good Canine Academy out of Fort Worth, Texas, and then we have the Malamos Foundation, who has almost 90 locations across the U.S. Between those 2, we can basically place a service dog anywhere in the country. And then we're also looking at working with you and some things that you have going on. We've had some conversations around that. But we fund, like, there's a cost that our nonprofit funds the other nonprofit to make sure that that service dog costs the vet nothing. So we don't feel like we're competing. We're willing to put some of our dollars into another nonprofit to ensure that a vet for first responders is taken care of. At the end of the day, that's what matters. And then 22 Salute was born as a way to self-fund a nonprofit. So I've raised funds for over 10 years. It burns you out. Like, it's a constant grind. Every time the economy changes, donations to a nonprofit are the first things that go. Just immediately, like everybody, oh, I don't have money to donate anymore. And so I wanted a way to self-fund it. And so I put together a spirited coffee brand that a percentage of all the profits go to reduce veteran and first responder suicide. We use veteran companies for all the products that we produce. Even our clothing brand is veteran clothing brand. Like, everything we do has to be putting money back in to help veterans and first responders. And the service dog is a big piece of that. So uh, we really believe in the value and that our service dog brings to a vet's life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I can relate, and we've had conversations on the side about it. Of the mission that I have is not reinventing the wheel per se. It's just in a different avenue of approach, and us all working together is going to accomplish the mission overall for any type of veteran or first responder out there. And I think it's commendable that you've had this drive and you've taken your personal life struggles and really poured your heart and soul into the organizations and the company with 22 Salute. And it's a great name, by the way. And one thing I have to say is a lot of people they're very quick to jump into starting up a nonprofit, right? They don't realize the amount of work sometimes is a lot more than if you go the for-profit side. And having consistency across all board members and everything else when you're starting up nonprofits. It's a huge undertaking for things to run smoothly and successfully. So what you've created and founded and kept it pushing forward is very commendable, and I just want to say I appreciate you. Now, you briefly talked about the boundless success, the veteran connection, 22 Salute. What is it? And you talked about being a military brat and moving around. What is the biggest takeaway that any veteran that seeks any services in which you guys can provide, what is the biggest takeaway that you can see them being able to get?
So the biggest value they can get out of the organization?
Yeah, the biggest value, and not a monetary amount. Everybody looks at a lot, but just that connection. You said you had the app and stuff. Each veteran obviously is going to be or first responder is going to take something different, but overall what is the biggest thing that people can take away from being able to utilize services?
The biggest thing I would say, our huge focus right now that we're fundraising every single week for right now is service dogs. And that's because, like I said, of all the therapies that we offer and have, access to, it's the one that consistently produces the greatest results. We know if we place a service dog, somebody's life is going to change for the better. We don't know if somebody goes and does yoga or tapping or things like that, whether that's going to make a huge impact on their life. We know for sure a service dog will. Like, it's over 90% confident that that's going to make a huge impact. And then that allows us to tap them into the other resources that we have available. And so that's a big one. The connection's a huge piece. Like, transition is one of the hardest things that a veteran deals with. And part of what makes that a challenge is the connection piece. It's also things like employers don't understand how their skill sets translate into a regular, job, which makes no sense. Like, I have friends. I have one friend in particular that lives by me that he's a Navy SEAL for a long time, and he transitioned out, applied for 17 jobs, got turned down for every one of them. And it's just because employers don't understand like how a Navy SEAL's skill set translates into a regular job, but it does. They're leaders. Like, so transition is hard. So connection and service dogs are kind of our two biggest pieces, and then the other pieces we just fill in depending on where they need.
Yeah. Yeah, and you nailed it right on the head as far as, and that was one of the main things, kind of spearheading the start of Everlasting Veteran is helping with the transition for veterans. And I just talked about it last week. It's almost a daily occurrence now. And you get handed a DD 214 unless you're in the military or you work in some government sector. It's going to be a foreign language to you, and most of the time there's so much, depending on how long your career is, it's not all going to be on there. It's going to be abbreviated, and there's literally no literal translation, from military lingo to civilian world, like you said. And I think, that's one of the big overhauls I think that needs to happen with military transition is having, a civilian kind of side DD 214 that, shows the capabilities that, veterans are capable of. Now, I do have to say this, and if I'm going to get a little flack from it from the veteran community, but it is what it is. Just because you're a veteran doesn't mean that you have the skill set of everybody else. And just because you have that title of veteran doesn't mean that you are more qualified than somebody else as well. So that being said, take your training and your leadership skills and everything at face value, what it is. Don't over exaggerate on it just because you're a veteran now. And that's one of the big key takeaways I tell people a lot of times is, if you go and do college and you get a college degree and you study in X, Y, and Z, you're not going to say that you have a doctorate if you only got your bachelor's. So you have to take it for what it is, the training that you received, to the time and service in which you're in, and those experiences, those life experiences, sergeant above, or there's even times that you have your specialist E4 filling in sergeant roles, and having those letters of recommendation. I spoke about this in season 1. I came out of active duty with probably about 10 to 15 letters of recommendation from higher enlisted and officers in which I was under their command. And the majority of the time, no civilian sector is going to even look at them for whatever reason. So I don't know why, but all they want to do is see how much grant money they can get when they hire a veteran, because it saves them on salary, and stuff like that needs to change. Veterans coming out, especially ones that have made a career of it, or 5+ years in service, are going to be your most valuable assets, because structure, leadership, command structure, all that kind of stuff is valuable information to the person coming out into the workforce, and their work ethic is going to be that much stronger as well. And I think it's one of those things with transition, the overhaul and of transition. They have a different program now. It used to be TAP, but it's an antiquated program that needs an overhaul. And I talked about it before, and I'll continue to talk about it till something changes. Just like you said, the DD 214 that we receive and we get out is foreign language to most.
Yeah, I think I do have to give recognition that like things are slowly changing. It's government, nothing's going to change fast. I think the things that need to be changed is one, like they need to start preparing people for transition sooner. Like it's generally within the last month or two of someone transitioning out, you start going through those, the different pages and stuff around that. The government puts all their money into training someone to be a warrior, but they don't put money into helping them transition. But I think they're trying to change that a little bit. There's also good programs that are coming out, like Skill Bridge, and you don't even have to be part of Skill Bridge. Like, you can find a company. I guess I'll explain Skill Bridge first in case people don't know what it is. So Skill Bridge is a program where if somebody's within like 6 months of transitioning, and they can work through the Skill Bridge program, go on as like an intern at a company. The company has their 6 month of pay is covered by the military during that time. And then the goal is that they get hired on after the 6 months. But even you can even do it outside of SkillBridge. Like if you know have a company that will let you come intern, you can just do it directly to the company. So the government has a program set up that's not tied into SkillBridge or anything else. But you're gonna have to convince your commanders and stuff, hey, like I've got to have time off to go do this. So it's not like just because you want to do it, you can do it. But it's the fact that the government's getting more open to the fact that we've got to make a change when it comes to transition. And that I appreciate is that they're slowly starting to make an effort to make that process better.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's a fine balance. Before it was mission readiness, we're in, elbow deep in a war in Afghanistan and Iraq. We still do have people that are deploying constantly around the world as we speak for different missions. But it is a balance. Mission readiness for the country, and at the same time, like you said, there needs to be a longer period of time, and I've spoke about that before. A lot of times, you go to turn your stuff in, or you get your letter to say, okay, it's time to ETS, and you got like 2 months, 3 months,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
you're going out the door. Mine was one of those things where they started doing the involuntary separation because they were starting to downsize, and have a drawback, in 2012. And, it was, well, you got to re-enlist for another 3 years, or we're going to change your ETS date by 365 days, possibly. It wasn't a actual thing that may have happened, but I ran the risk of it. And I'm like, I have orders to go back stateside. I'm going to, 101st Airborne. I haven't been back stateside in 4.5 years. And, I ran the risk. And, what ended up happening is 3 months out, a year and 3 months out, they changed my ETS date by 365 days. And it gave me 3 months to pack my stuff up from Germany and move back stateside. So, transition wise, it's a very quick time, especially coming from overseas. And I was fortunate at the time. I didn't have family with me. It was just me. I had a place to call home when I came back. But there is a lot of veterans of the 200,000 plus transitioning every single year. The statistics on homelessness is through the roof. They're saying that 2/3 of the homeless population throughout the United States are veterans. And of the veterans that have served in the Afghanistan and Iraq war, more than 50% are coming back with PTSD, anxiety, or some type of mental health type of situation that, a lot of them, including myself for many years, you didn't want to say, I have issues, then you'd feel broken or, possibly judged. And there was still that stigma, that hard stigma of like PTSD and anxiety and all that stuff at the time. And I think that, until you get out and realize that things have evolved a little bit more outside of the service, then you can kind of get a grasp of it. But I don't think that the transition should take 5+ years. I think that a lot of veterans could be in a good job, comparable paying job or higher, in a sooner, quicker rate than what's happening right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, well, you also have with 22 Salute, you guys just came out with a limited edition.
Yep. Yeah, so on 22 Salute, we have vodka, coffee, and the limited edition, which is a bourbon. It's a big vanilla bourbon. Super amazing flavor, very, very smooth, just like we used to see with our vodka. We Everything we do, we put quality into. So we're not trying to be the most inexpensive or the most expensive in anything we make, but we're going out of our way to have it veteran made and that it's the highest quality it can possibly be made. And if that means the profit margins are smaller, that's fine. My goal is 10 years down the road, I'm still buying our product because it's that good. I'm not just trying to sell a product to make a quick dollar to put into a nonprofit. The goal is to not have to fundraise every single month for the nonprofit. The only way that happens is if I produce a quality product that someone will keep buying month after month after month, or every couple of months. Like everybody's going to drink alcohol at a different rate. I'm not advertising that people should just sit and consume a ton of alcohol, but coffee too. Like average person has it 1 to 2 cups a day, and so there you go. See, so we've gone out of our way to do quality, and so it's not. It's definitely like you could put all of our products in like high end premium products, but we don't price it at that because I want it affordable, that it makes sense for everybody, and at the same time, you showed a bottle. I'll grab a bottle. Something that's unique about 22 Salute. Sometimes I get emotional. I'm trying not to get emotional. I can feel it coming. My core mission is to produce this, and that can be an interesting conversation when you have an alcohol brand, because alcohol can be a coping mechanism for suffering, and I didn't take that lightly. But you name another brand who's putting suicide on a grocery store shelf, a bar counter, on a restaurant, wherever you are. Nobody wants to talk publicly about suicide. Nobody wants to do it. Not just veterans, but suicide in general. Nobody wants to talk about it. We made the awareness in a national way. We tell very clearly the story of why this brand exists and what we're trying to do. And if someone's using this as a coping mechanism, my hope is they walk into a store to buy alcohol, they see our bottle, and it makes them change their mind and walk out and don't buy anything. So whether they're in a grocery store, a liquor store, a bar, I don't want them using this as a coping. And if they're in that mindset and no one else reached out, like connection, we'll go back to connection is how you save a life. Like 22 push-ups a day isn't going to save a life. You reach out to 22 people a day and see how they're doing, you're going to save a life. And if no one reached out, our bottle, we designed it in a way that I want it to be that last stop. Nobody got in front of them. Change that action in your mind. Walk right out that door. Don't buy our product or anyone else. Your life matters more than somebody selling a product. Literally, I'm trying not to get emotional. Like suicide is very personal to me. And like I said, it was not an easy decision to decide to take a 10-year perfect history of a nonprofit and tie an alcohol brand to it. That when mental health and suicide prevention is your core mission, that, that I took a chance, but I did it in a way that I knew no one else would do it.
Yeah, and I think it's a strong message. You know, not a lot of people, not many people at all, will talk about suicide. You know, and not a lot of people will. Talk about people that they've lost to suicide, and a lot of times you'll hear they were a great person, and then the conversation kind of ends abruptly because it's an uncomfortable conversation that people don't want to have because there is that stigma of sorts of if you do talk about it, then you may be weak, or it's a conversation that because it makes people uncomfortable, you kind of outcast yourself in a sense, and people don't want to talk to you because you want to talk about those uncomfortable situations to help other people, and having, like you said, having the label and the bottle the way it is, and you explaining it in that manner, it speaks volumes because you're putting, I wouldn't say necessarily controversial, but you're putting the spotlight, on what is real, the uncomfortable conversation.
We're bringing nationwide awareness.
Yeah, the uncomfortable conversation that people don't want to have, and and you're putting a purpose behind it, and that's why it's the vodka with a purpose, and it speaks volumes. It really does, and it's very commendable. That leap of faith is what you say, to be vulnerable and put it out there, how you want people to connect with it, and like I said, it's commendable. Because I talked with a lot of people, even side conversations and stuff, and military friends, first responders around the country. The biggest thing is the uncomfortable conversations. Nobody wants to have them. So who's going to pick it up? Who's going to pick up the torch and have those uncomfortable conversations? You and I. Other people that want to help with the mission, be that that lifting space, where you can lift it up and say, hey, listen, this is okay to talk about now. you know if we don't talk about it, if we keep kind of pushing it to the side, and I'm not just talking about, oh man, I was having a bad day, no, like, get down to how you're actually feeling, what is going through your mind in that moment. Even though that moment is over and it is past, you still need to talk about it, because if you don't, then you can't heal. And I think what you guys have going with the 22 salute, one, it honors the ones that we've lost, and at the same time it gives purpose back to the ones that are still with us.
Yeah, speaking of honoring, so our vodka is unique. You can't do this with bourbon. You can't filter the crud out of bourbon. On our vodka, we filter over 22 times specifically to honor the lives that we've lost to suicide. The goal was not to create the smoothest vodka on the market. But that's what happened by filtering 22 times. The average vodka is filtered 1 to 3 times. But it was specifically because we wanted to honor those lives. And if we're being open and transparent and talking, the suicide rate in the veteran community is higher than the The actual numbers are probably between 40 to 60. But I don't have the cash to go re-educate the whole population that it's not 22 a day, and the Department of Defense is going to keep pushing 22 a day. So we stuck with that, but that's not the true numbers. And we also have a 1 liter bottle. So we didn't come out with a 750 milliliter vodka bottle, which is what is the most popular selling size of a bottle. But there's 22 shots in a 1 liter bottle. Everything we do is to bring awareness to that number and the problem. And we call those 22 salute shots. We trademark that. And I mentioned community is the best way to save a life. So on the back of the bottle it says, gather 22 friends and family and do a salute shot together. And the point of that is reach out to people. Reach out to 22 people. That's how you're going to save a life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's truly amazing. I didn't even know that. And not only does it have a purpose on the back end, but it has a purpose why it's being made. It's purposely crafted into the vodka that it is. The bottle, the size of it. I didn't even know that that was a thing with the 22 shots.
Yeah, if you look on the back transcript, on the back, you'll see the salute shot and it talks about it. And the new vodka bottle that you don't have yet, it's going to be when we run out of our current inventory. And on our bourbon bottle now, it has all the information to contact the suicide hotline immediately. And it's on the bottom of 22salute.com. It's the bottom of the veteransconnection.com. There is a QR code that you scan on the vodka bottle. It'll take you to our website where you can click on it. But now we're even taking it one step further where the numbers will all be on the bottles themselves. And the uncomfortable conversation isn't just about veterans and first responders. I do believe there's a higher percentage of them that won't talk about it because they feel like they're being weak, as you mentioned. But just suicide in general, like our country hit an all-time mental health crisis during COVID, and parents, children, veterans, first responders. I mean, suicide and mental health is an all-time, and we're tackling. Okay, so I'm going to say something that I don't talk a lot about at the Veterans Connection because we haven't formally released it. But we hired a third-party industry research company, and we're actually putting clinical research behind the alternative natural therapies that we use with veterans. We're doing that because in 2020, Congress gave the VA $10 billion for veteran mental health. $7 billion of that went to the pharmaceutical companies. $3 billion went to help veterans. That same year, there was 1.6 million calls to the veteran suicide line. They anticipated in that when they released that to Congress that it was going to be 2.3 million in 2021. I haven't seen the updated number, but that's what they anticipated. They anticipated it going up and putting money in pharmaceutical drugs. The only way to change where money goes from Congress to the VA is to have clinical research. I don't have the power to fight against big pharma. But if you have enough research, you can force some change. And if we can solve veteran and first responder mental health and suicide, I feel those are some of the highest cases there is. Then we can replicate that to everybody. Take that research and help parents and children and start replicating it. But first you need to prove it in the hardest cases, all the things that work and what doesn't work.
A lot of people don't, look at it that way. I mean, we, 2020, 2021, we hit a social setback, and, maybe, some of the younger kids really didn't feel the effects of it, but, people that, had to kind of go about their day of having intellectual conversations face to face, and then it was all of a sudden cut off. It does have a strain on your mental health, and it's almost like it's kind of not really talked about at all. It's like, pandemic's over, all right, everybody get back to normal. And it, you had a lot of kids where the generation right now that's in school, they're all about social media, TikToking and stuff like that, where that's how they communicate most of the time.
And that's not good for your mental health.
No, and it's not. And, I think that they were kind of easily able to get through the pandemic because of it, in a sense. But there is many others where, their social intellectual capabilities of communicating with people were damaged even further, because that's what they had to rely on. Everybody had to a certain extent, and it damaged you not just mentally, but how you actually communicate with the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your day and coming on and talking about getting really in depth of what it means to you, and the thoughts that have gone into making the product what it is. And it truly is inspiring, your story personally, and everything else. So I just want to say I truly appreciate you, Eric, and I hope that we can definitely tackle this and build the community stronger and better than it is now.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, like, we just have to save lives. Like, that's what it amounts to. I mean, you're involved with a big project coming up, that has to do with the 22 number as well. I think both of us have had some conversations with Brian on some things that we want to do around what he's doing with powerlifting, things like that. Like, as a community, we have a lot of power, but it takes people being willing to have that conversation. And I appreciate that you're willing to have people like myself on that can help further that conversation. And if even one person takes something from this message that you and I put out today and can help get involved with the mission of reducing suicide, like, that's what matters.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to point out, the numbers, the 22. I think it was the American Warrior Project, last year, or the year before, they came out with, because the VA was recording only suicides, not self-injury deaths, and combined, they were in the numbers of 40 to 44 a day. And unfortunately, since I had that conversation, did that episode about a month and a half ago, it seems as though the numbers are continuing to rise.
They also only look. Sorry, that delay gets us. They also only looked at about 9 states where the Department of Defense are in that study. So they didn't look across the whole United States. They kind of cherry picked what they wanted to use for data.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's unfortunate, because they did put a lot of resources, towards coming up with a statistical number when 22 first came out, but then it wasn't looked at again for quite some years, and I think now we're kind of playing catch up, and I had a conversation with a guy the other day who was getting frustrated with the VA, and you get that typical conversation of F the VA and people have to realize that 200,000 plus veterans are ETSing and getting out of the military every single year. So that doesn't include the people that are already in the system trying to get into the system. The system is overloaded immensely, to the point where they did not expect or prepare, I should say, for the services that were going to be needed coming back from and ending the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's unprecedented numbers, and I just want people to have patience. Patience it's sometimes the hardest to do, but have patience. It's not that they don't care. It's because it's overloaded. They even went to an automated system to get some type of benefits out, and that's not even perfect. But be patient, and in the meantime, reach out, connect with people, and we'll get through it together as a community.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I firmly believe as well. The VA wants to help people. They're doing the best they can. It's a big task to take on. Um, and also, don't when I mentioned like 7 billion went to pharmaceutical drugs, don't hear me saying totally stay away from pharmaceutical drugs. Like there's a place and a time for that to stabilize somebody. If somebody once someone's stable, you can get them through the healing journey. But at the end of the day, like we need people stable, we need people alive, we need people. So don't take that message as I'm anti-pharmaceutical drug. I'm anti people being stuck on them. Instead, we need to heal people. And I think the VA is becoming more adapt to alternative therapies. There's some VAs that are testing like medical marijuana, things like that, not across the country, but it's being tested in small pockets. So I do believe the VA is trying to do their best. They are, like you said, overwhelmed. They also, it's a government organization, so things don't move at lightning speed. Like if you feel like something, which is prime example, which is medical marijuana, if you think that should be across the board, realize it's a government program and it takes time and research and everything to get things. So we have to give VA credit for what they do. If I wanted to call out one thing I think would make a big difference in the VA is that people could have a consistent person to talk to when they do go to the VA. I think the challenge of people that come to our organization is they'll talk to like a therapist, and the next time they go, they have to retell their story because there's a whole other therapist that they're dealing with. I think if that piece could be more consistent of not having to restart the process, I think other pieces can be dealt with like here and there and understand like it's a government organization. But I think that's the hardest piece is people are trying to get help and they feel like they keep restarting the process.
Yeah, it's good. That's a good point. And I think it speaks to kind of just reliving your conversation. If you had to have that tough conversation, how many times do you want to have it before somebody tells you, okay, it's time to let go? It's like, all right, well, I just told 5 other people that, and I have to repeat myself every single time, and it becomes very frustrating, and it adds to versus helping. So I think that's a good point as well. So, but Eric, I appreciate you coming on, and I would definitely love to have you on for another episode, and be able to talk about your journey with the Veteran Connection and 22 Salute, and as things progress. And they're progressing very rapidly, rightfully so, because of the hard work and dedication that you're pouring into your heart and soul into helping others. So I want to say I appreciate you for coming on, and I appreciate everything that you're doing.
Yeah, it's echoed both ways. I appreciate the things you're doing with your podcast, not only just a podcast, but you're very involved with different ways that you can help people in the community, in the both veteran and rated community. You're getting involved with like service dogs, with organizations that do like, anti-suicide things and things like that. Like you're involved with a lot, and that makes a big difference because we can't do it. No one can do it alone. Which is why, as I mentioned, the veteran partners a lot of for-profit, non-profit. We can't do it alone, and it's people like you that are making a difference, and then having people like me on to share a message as well makes a difference. But thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, guys, this is Ryan Landry, an everlasting veteran, with Eric Ranks, the CEO of 22 Salute Spirits and Coffee with a Purpose, the CEO and founder and president of the Veteran Connection. You've heard it from Eric Ranks, his mission pushing forward. It is a purpose-driven mission, personally and professionally. don't forget to go and check out my sponsors, Sky Hunter Outfitters, Brandy Rector down in Idabel, Oklahoma, Marine Corps veteran. She has a helicopter hog hunting company. You can book a hog hunting trip of a lifetime. And Rockin' Frenchies, a veteran, Marine Corps veteran and veteran dog breeder, in which I have partnered with to be able to directly get dogs for veterans. I want to, just say I appreciate both of them coming on as strong sponsors for Everlasting Veteran. Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You have a great day.
When the smoke clears, we're still standing. Yes, we stand our ground.
You're listening to Everlasting Veteran.
When the smoke clears,